Dominic Cummings, the Prime Minister's former aide and chief advisor, or whatever you want to call him, he's been in all kinds of different roles. He was the head of the Vote Leave campaign in the EU referendum. He, of course, had an explosive testimony in front of MPs a little while ago now, I believe it was a month or two ago. And now he has done a big interview with the BBC where he has said some even more damning things about Boris Johnson and his general attitude towards the pandemic. So Cummings left his role at the end of 2020 and since then seems to have been cooking up quite the menagerie of stories about Boris Johnson, revealing all about the way that Johnson's handled the pandemic and the way he conducted himself with regards to Cummings and when it came to making different kinds of decisions. So what Dominic Cummings has said is pretty shocking, and I'll just get straight to the point now. He said, and this is a quote from Cummings, and obviously Cummings a bit of a liar himself, okay? We do have to take this with a grain of salt, but there does seem to be no real reason why he would lie, right? And I think we all know Boris Johnson has certainly dealt with the pandemic in a very lackadaisical way anyway, so it's not really too much of a stretch. He said, this was last autumn, "I no longer buy this NHS overwhelmed stuff." That's what Boris Johnson said. And apparently he joked that because the average age of COVID deaths was in the 80s, people could get COVID and live longer, because the average life expectancy in the UK, I think, is 79, and a lot of the average deaths were people who were like 83, 84. So he was saying, oh, well, you get coronavirus and you live longer. He was kind of joking about it. But there was also some worse stuff. Even worse than that, yes. He said that, so Cummings directly said that his attitude at that point, autumn 2020, was a weird mix of partly it's all nonsense and lockdowns don't work anyway, and partly, well, this is terrible, but the people who are dying are essentially all over 80 and we can't kill the economy just because of people dying over 80. So despite the fact that actually just leaving the economy, leaving this country open, allowing the virus to just sweep through the population is a terrible idea, even when you're looking at it from a cold, logical, economic standpoint. He believed that it was worth sacrificing the lives of people who are over 80, the oldest people in the population, because, well, I guess they don't matter that much. They're old, they've lived a life, who cares, right? So he thought that was a good idea. Something that Cummings also mentioned is that actually Boris Johnson didn't think that the first lockdown was a good idea. Apparently he didn't think that at the beginning. Then when the lockdown happened, immediately afterwards he did think it was a good idea, and this was, I think, just shortly after, while he was recovering from his own bout of coronavirus. But then, very quickly, after anti-lockdown voices in the Conservative Party, in think tanks and all kinds of things, started screaming and shouting about it, he switched and changed his mind and decided that, yes, the first lockdown was in fact a mistake, and still believes to this day that he shouldn't have locked the country down, that we should have kept it open. He said we should never, and this is a quote from Cummings. Quote, he said we should never have done the first lockdown. He said that repeatedly in meetings in Number 10, end quote. He added, quote, after the first wave passed and after he came back to work, initially his view was essentially, thank goodness we did do that. But very quickly, as the Telegraph and various parts of the media and Tory party started screaming, he then basically reverted and said actually the whole thing was a disaster. We should never have done it. I was right in February. We should basically just ignore it and just let the thing wash through the country and not destroy the economy and move on, end quote. He put, quote, political interests ahead of lives, end quote, and didn't care if over 80s died. That's what Cummings is saying. There's also the fact that Johnson apparently was very up for meeting the Queen in person when people in Number 10 people he was working with in 10 Downing Street had tested positive for coronavirus. He was going to go and meet the Queen, right? Now, I'm no royalist, right? But that is such an incredibly ill-conceived idea. It's either he's so absent-minded, he didn't even think, and that is what it sounds like from what Cummings has described and the messages he's revealed. Apparently, Boris Johnson said, "Oh yeah, bollocks, didn't think of that." And Cummings had to remind him, Jesus Christ, how bad would it be, right, if she got it from you? Or, number two, he literally just doesn't care if the Queen dies because he thinks, well, it doesn't bother me, it's not an issue, right? I don't know which one it was. I mean, maybe there's a third option. Maybe he genuinely thought she'd be fine. Either way, that's very concerning. So, you know, I encourage you all to go and watch the full interview, because the things Cummings is saying about the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom are really just baffling, and they are the kind of thing that should end someone's political career, just like that. But these days, that's just not what happens. Boris Johnson seems virtually immune to all scandal. So we'll see if this affects Boris Johnson's popularity. It's really, really, really concerning that he's still in power. But hey, do you even believe Dominic Cummings? Do you actually think that he's telling the truth? Do you think it would be in character of Boris Johnson to do that, or do you think this is all a load of rubbish? Do you think that he will resign, or he will get pressured out over the next few months, or do you think this is just going to wash over him just like all the other scandals? I'd love to know if you want to let me know in the comments. So thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.